Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're looking at a pretty heavy piece of writing centered on severe internal struggles.
Yeah, it's an incredibly intense source.
It really is. We're talking about things like sensory overload, depression, ARFID, which is avoidant restrictive food intake disorder, and, well, alcohol reliance. And the mission of this deep dive is, to explore why pushing yourself harder is actually backfiring.
Right, why the whole just try harder mentality fails.
Exactly. And why your survival really depends on embracing campen ikke destination, meaning focusing on the struggle itself rather than constantly agonizing over being, like, fixed at the destination.
Which is such a vital reframing. I mean, we're so conditioned to just stare at the finish line.
Mm.
But this text asks you to, stop, look down, and acknowledge the brutal battlefield you're currently standing on.
Okay, let's unpack this. So the source starts with this central metaphor. Think about a machine breaking down like a car engine, just smoking and grinding.
It's making those awful mechanical noises, right?
Yeah, exactly. You can't fix that system by simply yelling louder at the dashboard. Yet, when our own minds and nervous systems are failing, that's exactly what we do to ourselves.
We really do. And to understand why that mental machine is breaking, the text introduces a really fascinating internal cast of characters.
Right, the sensory stuff.
Exactly. When you experience a sensory attack, say, the grocery store is just too bright,
Well,
or the overlapping noise is too loud, the demands are just too high, your brain doesn't just register that as a minor annoyance.
it's not just like, oh, this is irritating.
It registers it as a literal life or death threat. Your nervous system sounds an absolute emergency alarm. And when there is a raging fire in your nervous system, who gets called? The firefighter.
Wait, let me stop you right there. Because the text explicitly identifies this firefighter as alcohol. And I really have to push back on that.
Sure, go ahead.
Well, alcohol is objectively destructive. It ruins lives. Instead of being mad at the firefighter for showing up, shouldn't we focus on stopping the fires? Like, why is our default usually to let our inner mechanic just bark harsher orders at us to fix ourselves?
What's fascinating here is that the text actually agrees with you. It actively warns against taking any more orders from that harsh inner mechanic.
Wait, really? So it's not saying alcohol is a good thing?
Not at all. It's asking you to understand its function in that specific moment of crisis. The firefighter isn't there to build a good life. It rushes out with sirens blaring simply to drown the unbearable sensory fire in foam just so you can survive the next 10 minutes.
Oh, wow. So it's a desperate, primitive survival mechanism.
Exactly. But instead of recognizing that desperation, our default is to wake up, see the metaphorical water damage the firefighter left behind, and then let that inner mechanic violently berate us for being broken.
We just punish ourselves.
Right. And that is what drives the whole system into the ground, demanding that you just try harder while your nervous system is actively on fire. It's impossible. What you actually need is an internal ceasefire.
Okay, but how do you actually do that, though? Internal ceasefire sounds great on paper, but how do you physically execute that when your brain is screaming that you're in danger?
By focusing on the sparks before they become infernos, you have to actively dampen the sensory input.
So, like, retreating from the noise?
Yeah, if that means giving yourself permission to sit in a dark room, or wear noise-canceling headphones, or just decline an overwhelming event before the nervous system panics.
Oh, I see. Proactively sending physical safety signals to your brain.
Yes. If you stop the fires from starting, the firefighter, the alcohol doesn't have to be deployed as often.
When you lay it out like that, it completely shifts the emotional weight of this text. It basically tells the reader, you have fought a war with very few resources.
It's incredible validation.
It really is. Existing right now shouldn't require constant inner violence. If you're listening to this and struggling, it's because it is legitimately incredibly hard to be you right now. You aren't weak, you're just exhausted from fighting a daily war.
And that validation is powerful, but we do have to ground it in reality, too. The source is very clear that understanding your internal firefighter is a tool, not a magical cure-all.
Right, because the stakes are so high.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because we're dealing with heavy burdens like alcohol, depression, and ARFID, the text issues a final directive. The most loving thing your waking core can do is seek professional support. You are not supposed to carry this alone.
You absolutely deserve backup. And as you navigate this, treating yourself with grace during a hard fight is so much more important than rushing to fix the destination. Campen ikke destination.
Exactly. It's about respecting those desperate survival mechanisms that kept you alive, while bravely finding safer ways to put out the flames.
Which leaves us with something pretty intense to mull over. If our most destructive coping mechanisms are actually just well-meaning internal firefighters, what other everyday habits in our lives are actually secret emergency responders in disguise?